Hey, 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 welcome to Life Rhythms Radio Show. Yes, so excited about that. I am your host, DJ producer Ryan Sky. Life Rhythms Radio is a radio show that revolves around my personal growth journey. As a songwriter and music producer, I spend a lot of time observing the world around me, looking inward, trying to make sense of it all. I've been doing it in song form, and now I do it with my radio show, Life Rhythms. Each episode, we feature a different personal growth topic. So we feature one song and one topic, and the song serves as a jumping off point for whatever it is we're going to be discussing for the day. Today's topic, we're going to be talking about toxic relationships. Dun, dun, dun. Juicy, juicy stuff. I've got special guest today, Neffex. They're a musical duo based out of Orange County, and I'm a fan of their music. We're going to be featuring their song "Worst of You." It just came out, new single. And when I looked at the lyrics, "Worst of You," I started to think about toxic relationships because they're talking about being tired from sleepless nights, about the other person making them feel like they're doing nothing right. I'm paraphrasing. They talk about the other person calling them blind and throwing their phone. So, getting into fights. I'm starting to get some PSD right now, PTSD right now, thinking about past relationships where they weren't necessarily that healthy. But you know what? It took those experiences for me to realize what an unhealthy and toxic relationship was, signs to look out for. These are things we're going to be talking about today. We're going to go over, because the thing about toxicity in a relationship, according to Carla Marie Manley, PhD, she's the author of the book Joy from Fear. She says that depending on the nature of the relationship, signs of toxicity can be subtle. They can also be highly obvious, but the subtle interests me because a lot of times I find that we kind of end up in these dynamics where the signs aren't that obvious, and so you're not quite sure, is this really an unhealthy relationship? Or like for me, over the past year, I learned a lot about attachment theory and childhood wounds. And so there was a moment where I would be in dating somebody or in relationships where now I look back and I can see they were toxic and unhealthy. But at the time, they were also triggering things inside of me that needed to be healed, which, number one, I think is why we attracted to each other. They say like attracts like. And if you find yourself in an unhealthy dynamic, it's possible that there's something inside of you that this dynamic is bringing light to, that you can heal. That doesn't justify someone else's behavior, abusive behavior, by any means. But what I do want to say is that I've grown a lot from my past relationships, and even though they are not partners that I would want to be with long term, what I took away from these relationships, it really changed me for the better. So today we're going to be talking about toxic relationships, kind of the signs to look out for. We're going to talk about whether or not you should stay in a relationship. It's case by case, but we're just going to give you tools of kind of what to look for in the other person as a sign of whether or not it's somebody who's actually going to help you create a more healthy dynamic. So we're going to be going into that. We're going to be featuring Neffex's song "Worst of You," and we're going to take a quick break. And when we get back, I'll have my guys Neffex. I've got my manager and co-host Scott Waldman. We're going to be going over "Worst of You," toxic relationships, all of that when we get back after this short break. Welcome back to Life Rhythms Radio Show. I am your host, DJ producer Ryan Sky. I've got special guest today, Neffex. Hey guys.
Yo, what's going on? Man?
We got Bryce and Cameron with us today, the duo, and also my manager and co-host, Scott Waldman. Hey, Scott.
Just let it out.
Hi, Scott.
Hi, Scott.
Hello.
Hello.
Scott, it's pretty classic. You always open with a lyric.
I always open up with a lyric of the guests, so we make them feel at home, and then we interrogate them and make them sad.
Oh, I like it.
They're like, oh, yeah, this will be easy.
Yeah, all right.
It took me about halfway through season 1 to realize that you were always starting out with a lyric, but I think that's a great tie-in.
Honestly, I went right over my head, so.
You must be so tired from these sleepless nights.
You know, we definitely do. Just, I'm kidding.
No. You literally sound like our manager.
Yeah,
well, I am
work our song names.
So, listeners, the song that you listened to on the way into the segment is a song by Neffex. It's their new single called Worst of You. And yes, we're going to be featuring that today. And the topic of today's episode is we're going to be talking about toxic relationships and the possibility for growth.
Let's go.
And yeah.
This sounds scary. All right, cool.
Can't wait.
Yeah. Oh, God. All right.
Yeah. So we're featuring Worst of You, the song Worst of You. And when I was looking at the lyrics, the idea of talking about toxic relationships is what came to me first, because, I'm looking at these lyrics and I'm so tired from these sleepless nights. You make me feel like I do nothing right. And when I hear that lyric, you make me feel like I do nothing right. First of all, it brings back a little bit of PTSD for me and some of my past relationships. But it just brings back memories of like blaming and gaslighting and not being supportive of the other person. And these could be signs of that you might be in a toxic relationship. So it would be cool if we talk about this today, and maybe some of our experiences. And I have some, we can talk about, signs of a toxic relationship, whether or not you should stay in one, because it's really case by case basis. So we can talk about like what signs to look out for. I write a quote for every episode. And the quote that I wrote for this episode goes like this: every relationship that you enter into is an opportunity for growth, but not all relationships are created equal. Some may inspire you to become a better person, to heal childhood wounds, and to learn about yourself, but you have to consider the cost. If you find yourself in an unhealthy dynamic and sense that something is off, you might be experiencing subtle or not so subtle forms of toxicity. It's important to recognize unhealthy patterns both in yourself and the people you are drawn to, because like attracts like. Ouch. And as Albert Einstein famously said, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. So you don't have to keep.
That's a great quote. I love that one.
Yeah. And it makes sense with relationships. It's like if you keep finding yourself in the same dynamic and expecting different results, you got to look at your behaviors. You don't have to keep attracting the same kinds of people. And you also don't have to necessarily leave your relationship if there are signs that your partner is open for change. Your awareness is key in determining what's best for you to move forward. So that's a quote.
That's awesome.
A little help of Albert Einstein in there.
Yeah, he's kind of an Einstein.
He's kind of a smart dude, huh?
Yeah.
Did he have a relationship? Did he have a girlfriend or a wife, or what's up with that?
Well, he sounds like he could be one of my relatives.
Was he too smart for one? He knew it was a bad idea.
I actually, believe it or not, I recently read a book about Albert Einstein, and he's the kind of genius who's so smart but needed help with like putting on his shoes.
Yeah.
Like he could figure out like formulas and algorithms, but he'd leave the house looking like a wackadoo.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
Hey, takes too much thought to get ready. Come on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what my wife says.
He says that about you? About you?
She says that about Jer.
little joke. Okay.
I'm like, is that a song lyric? Like, we're trying to think about it.
It's an inside joke that everyone's on the outside for. That's all.
Good.
Tight.
The best ones.
Scott every once in a while throws in a little Jewish joke, and I got him before he had a chance to throw it in.
Nice.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. How do I make you so mad, Ryan?
So, guys, so let's talk about this. Let's talk about the song "Worst of You," toxic relationships. I was looking at an article by Healthline, and they were talking about hallmark signs of toxicity in a relationship. And the first thing they said was lack of support. That when things turn toxic, every achievement becomes a competition, and you don't really feel like the other person has your back. That's kind of a subtle thing. I necessarily wouldn't think of that as toxic, but I would think of it as not an ideal trait. I would want the person to be supportive of me.
For sure. No, that's probably the reason why you see a lot of people who are high up CEOs or musicians and stuff struggle with relationships, because it's a lot of success and it's a very specific type of mindset for that success. That it's hard to be in a relationship with. It's hard to deal with someone who is having that success if you're not quite having that success, or the plane isn't quite level.
Yeah, and I imagine it would also be hard. Like for me, for instance, I've been in relationships in the past where I ended up kind of serving as this symbol to the other person of being a constant reminder to them that they were not pursuing their dreams and passions.
Yes.
And it's like one or two things can happen. If you, this is something that I've been learning lately, is that, well, I had said it in the quote that like attracts like, but I was thinking about past relationships and dating, and either two things can happen. Either one, you can inspire the other person, and it's really has nothing to do with you. It's up to them. They can either see you and you're pursuing your passions and your dreams, and they could be inspired by it, or it could kind of be a trigger to them and a constant reminder that they're not doing that.
Absolutely. Happens all the time. That's why, yeah, it's important to, if you're a motivated person, it's important to also find a motivated person who doesn't look at it as, a downer kind of situation, or doesn't try to constantly compare themselves to you, but like you said, tries to lift you up, or excels in a different field, excels in their own kind of space. I've always said the number one thing to look for in a partner is just open-mindedness. You can pretty much get through anything together as long as the person's open-minded. When people start getting closed-minded and very opinionated, and you can't work and mold and change together, if you disagree on something, it's over.
Well, it's like arguing with a bumper sticker.
Yeah, what are you going to do?
It's got an opinion. It's there.
Yep. If I see a bumper sticker that's like Flat Earth Society or like anti-abortion, I know that if I like pull up to a traffic light with the person and have a reasonable dialogue, it's totally going to change their mind.
Right, right. Oh yeah.
Have you guys ever? Do you guys put bumper stickers on your car? I've never had a bumper sticker on my car.
Yeah, I don't think I ever have either.
I think the worst bumper sticker to have on a car is like, my kid's an honor roll student. That's the worst one.
Just flying.
That's the worst one?
That's worse than anything. Anything.
And it also cracks me up when if I'll see someone driving a really nice car, say it's a Mercedes or something, they've obviously spent a lot of money on the car. They're taking care of it. It's clean. And then the license plate in the back will be this super cheap plastic license plate with like the dealership name on it.
Yeah.
And they go out of their way to have a really nice car, and they're paying all this money, and then they don't, like, for me, I look at the whole picture, and it's like, if I'm going to have a nice car, I want to finish it off with, that's such a small detail. It's so easy to just spend $50 or whatever to get a license plate holder.
For sure. I don't get that either.
I think I still have mine, so crap. Yeah.
I still actually, like, when I got my first guitar, my parents were like, you shouldn't put stickers on it. I'm like this 8th grade kid who's listening to like Epitaph's Punkorama series. So of course I do. But after that, I stopped. I said that because I know your roots, Neffex mofo.
Let's go.
That's right.
Tour, baby.
Damn right, so I played it.
What?
Nice.
Yeah, I used to be
my dream. Good for you.
Kind of jealous.
Yeah.
So we're talking about lack of support. The second hallmark sign of a toxic relationship would be, number 2 is toxic communication.
Yeah.
So instead of treating each other with kindness, most of your conversations are filled with sarcasm, criticism, overt hostility. You may even start avoiding talking to each other.
Yikes.
Yeah.
If you're not talking to each other, how do you have a relationship? So
you don't.
Yeah.
No, that kind of goes hand in hand with the if you're having a lot of success and they're upset, then they probably start tossing little comments here and there to put you down a little bit more because it helps them feel I don't know, better. But that would be toxic. That sounds awful. I wouldn't even want that in my friends, let alone relationships.
Yeah. And when I see that start to go on, it kind of, to me, is a sign of the beginnings of resentment forming. Yep. It's like they're starting to feel resentment towards you, and they're not quite, maybe they don't know how to verbalize it. Maybe they don't realize it, but it's starting to fester, and it comes out in these kind of passive aggressive comments.
100%.
Yeah.
Signs, you guys.
Toxic relationships.
These are those signs, man. These are those signs.
The next
talk through things.
Yeah. And the next one, and I've experienced this, here's another PTSD moment, is controlling behaviors.
Yeah.
So they're questioning where you are all the time, or they're becoming overly upset when you don't immediately answer their texts. These are signs of controlling behavior. And in some cases, these attempts to control you they can be a sign of abuse, which we
For
can
sure.
talk about as well later in the episode.
For sure.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
So
All right. Yeah, so fun. Let's go.
No, man, those are all telltale signs, and I feel like we've all been in relationships before where there's at least one, maybe all three of these things. I mean, a lot of times this stuff, whether I experienced it or heard of it, it happens a lot when you're younger. I mean, people are a little less mature, they're insecure, they're still trying to figure out their lives, high school, college, stuff like that. So you get a lot of this mistrust and mistreatment and lack of communication. So that does happen all the time.
Yeah.
And that the controlling behavior, it's where do you think that comes from? Because I think about usually,
Fear.
yeah.
Maybe have
Okay.
experiences with people that have deceived them or let them down.
Yeah. That's a big
100%.
insecurity. Yeah.
Or even just what they watch. I mean, people see it all the time. There's so many apps out there now, dating apps and stuff, that you can just log on and scroll right and match with people. So everyone's just insecure about where they stand. And like you said, no one really communicates it. No one's talking to the other person and verbalizing how much they mean to them and stuff like that. It's all important and creates insecurities.
I'm curious your experience, because I know you guys met in high school, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you met where was the high school at?
I was down in Orange County. So, but we went to different high schools. So that was the thing. We actually just met. We're like kind of close districts, but we met in like different scenarios, like friend groups and stuff just started to mix. And then we met in different bands. And so pretty much all our high school friends became each other's friends pretty much. So that was pretty cool.
Okay. So you met in high school and then you went off to college, right? And then you came back?
Yep. Yeah. B went off to college. So I don't know if he wants to talk about his college experience. Tell him how dope it was.
College is like high school on steroids. It's just the same exact drama and stuff like that. But some people take the more responsible route in college, and some people take the, hey, there's no parents around and a bunch of young, good-looking people route. So it's actually kind of a crazy experience, college.
Do you think it has to do with the upbringing?
Oh.
Yeah, kind of cool. Because like you said, once parents weren't around, now they're like, it's time to wreak havoc. But if you had cool parents that were like, we understand you're going to do things and kind of more chilled, then you're probably going into that experience a little bit more chilled out.
You definitely have the kids who like did have a good high school experience and come in and maybe still try to be the cool kid, but are maybe a little more settled. And then the kids who, always had parents maybe a little more strict, they come into college and they like overdo a lot of things. Yeah. And those people kind of become a mess sometimes.
It's freedom.
It's too much freedom.
I grew up in a small town in Western Pennsylvania. And I remember there was a girl in my high school and her parents were super strict. And it was a small town, not much going on, but they had very, very specific boundaries. Like she couldn't go past this restaurant on this highway. And then, so she had these boundaries of where she had to stay. And I remember I hadn't talked to her for a couple of years. And so fast forward a couple of years later, I'm in Pittsburgh, which was about an hour north of where we grew up. And I ran into her in one of the bar districts. And this was the first time I saw her outside of high school. So this was her first time living on her own. So I see her in the bar district and she's got like the shortest skirt I've ever seen. Everything's super tight. Her boobs are hanging out, and she had tons of makeup on her face, and very clearly was going through kind of like a rebellion phase. And that's why I had asked you guys, do you think that it has to do with the way someone is brought up can affect whether they are the more what were you saying, like the more responsible college student, or whether they feel the need, like they need to rebel?
Right. Well, I feel like some people just get their quote unquote rebellion out of their system. Like usually the kids who are...
Are you speaking from experience, Scott?
What's kind of funny is that I was actually like kind of like a straight edge kid, and not like Minor Threat where like I was like really, really preachy about it. But I was just, that kind of guy. And then when I got to college, I started drinking a bit. But, I don't know. I know some people who are like really religious, like both Jewish and Christian. And then when they went off to college, they just completely partied their brains out. And then, so
for sure.
Yeah.
I think you need to have some kind of boundary between discipline and freedom. Otherwise, the kid's just going to want to do that stuff.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, it's just such a rush of freedom. You're like, yo, I can do whatever I want right now. So you start doing
Anything.
whatever you want. Yeah,
Do whatever you
that's
want.
crazy.
I mean,
It totally. Oh, go ahead.
no. This is the show with Neffex. I'm just the fucking co-host.
Oh, that's
Well, you're doing great. So.
You're doing great. I love your story so far.
I love
Dude,
the stories so far.
I was gonna say it depends a lot on the school too. My mom always had this saying, this quote she would pin up on my wall. It said, "Show me your friends, I'll show you your future." And it's such a true quote because
Should
it's
put
like,
that on your wall.
yeah, she literally pinned it up on my wall every day. I look at it, and
Counselor's office.
I was very selective with who I associated with because it's such a true quote. And if you go to some crazy party school, I mean, you're probably around a lot of partiers, so you're going to party a lot. And if you go to some straight edge school, odds are you're that type of person, or you'll adapt because, I mean, it's all situational.
Yeah, I went to Santa Barbara once, and I don't know how those kids get anything done.
Oh,
I would never get anything done. I would be running around to the beach. I having a great time.
That's like spring break university with beautiful people.
Yes. Yeah, seriously. It's fun.
A rough life.
Well, Santa Barbara,
Right.
spring break, SB. Oh my God.
Yeah, that was the place to be.
But the initials, SB, Santa Barbara, spring break.
Spring break.
Oh
my God.
You get all the low key things. I like your style.
And I went to the University of Michigan, so I went to the University of Madness.
Wait, what university was it? Sorry, I didn't hear.
Oh, Michigan's crazy.
Oh, Michigan's amazing. Yeah, Michigan's fun too.
University of Michigan's wild. Any of the Midwest ones.
And then after school, you moved to LA, right, Scott?
Yep, I moved here in 2003, and I actually was in a band that was named after an Orange County street called the City Drive. And
cool.
We signed with Columbia, and I did that. But back to Ryan and Neffex.
Well, the real
no, more about you, Scott.
That's awesome.
The interesting question is, Scott, when you moved here, were you pursuing something or were you running from something in Michigan?
Toxic relationship.
I would argue both. I was pursuing career in music, and I was kind of running from, settling, because a lot of people that I knew from growing up on Long Island and from going to Michigan kind of had their lives planned out at a young age. Like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get a job at this company. I'm going to go to grad school. I'm going to do that. And I'm like, I want to be in a band. And that just did not compute to people. And a lot of those people actually were doing, some of these toxic communication traits of, criticizing me, being sarcastic about it, some real verbal hostility, but fuck them.
I think I was going to say that's probably one of the crazier parts about our journey too, was B, going to college and then coming out and saying, yo, we're going to start this band and stuff. But it was probably one of the coolest things because B got a whole marketing degree. So we were able to use that to our advantage like no other. So that was one of the biggest blessings we had, was making a move like that. So it was really cool.
I'm curious to ask you guys what your experience was like, because I had mentioned earlier about being a kind of finding yourself in a relationship where you, by no fault of your own, you end up becoming this symbol of what other people are not doing, and you're kind of triggering them. I also found that happens in small towns. And in the last episode of Life Rhythms, we were talking to Matt from Cheat Codes, and he grew up in, was it Detroit, Scott?
What about Detroit?
Is that where Matt is from Cheat Codes? Was it Detroit?
Missouri. I believe one of them
Missouri.
Is from St. Louis. I mean,
So
you could just say all the Midwestern states are flyover states. I'll say it. It's fine.
The takeaway for me is he was talking about how he had a nice job there, but he wanted to move and pursue music, and that people in his town were very much against it. And they were saying, "Oh, but you've got a great job. If you work this job for a couple more years, you'll have health insurance and benefits." And he was like, "I don't care about this stupid job. Like I want to do music, And so I wonder, because I experienced pushback as well. And I guess it's like, I don't know if it's small town thinking or it's just like, what was your experience, you guys, with regards to that?
There's always going to be pushback. I feel like no one is just like, yeah, go ahead, go be a rock star. It's going to work out. Like, no, it's such a complicated, you have to be able to get through the pushback to know that you're actually passionate about it. If there's pushback in your family and your loved ones and close people and you can't handle that, you're probably not that passionate about it. So I feel like any successful artist had pushback, went through it, dealt with it, and then went along their path. So
yeah. I worked as a construction laborer, so I'm pretty sure no one gave a shit. They're like, yeah, that's probably better at this point. You can try to do
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So
Like, go ahead.
I didn't get much pushback. So that was good.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah,
That makes sense. That makes sense that a lot of blue collar people who kind of, let their dreams die would be supportive, whereas people who might be quote unquote successful in a certain field making six figures are like, no, you're not going to have the lifestyle that I have. You got to do something else.
Yeah, very true. That happens.
See, sometimes I'm not funny and I'm awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be 50-50. You got it.
I got it.
Whatever way the wind blows. Okay, let's jump into some other signs of a toxic relationship. Let's see what else we got on this list. We talked about controlling behaviors.
We're going to end on a fun note.
Yeah,
I'm ready. Oh, no, I'm kidding.
Let's see. Okay, so we've got a couple minutes left. I'll tell you the other ones. You guys tell me which ones resonate with you. So the ones that are left on the list, we can pick one or two, is patterns of disrespect, constant stress that you're experiencing, ignoring your needs. The other ones were lost relationships, like you find yourself not spending time with family and friends as much because you're avoiding conflict.
Oh, yeah.
What do you guys think? Have you experienced that?
I'm always constantly stressed, so I'll go with that one. That's just regardless of a relationship, so that's cool.
Stressed in general?
Awesome.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of toxic relationships that try to keep you from friends and family because they don't necessarily, it's almost like they love you so much they don't even really like sharing you that much, or they don't even really necessarily enjoy when someone else is making you laugh harder than they can. It's another insecurity thing, like they want to be that person making you laugh that hard. That happens all the time, and it's just finding someone who's very secure with themselves and understands, and you can help with that. It's not just their problem, it's being the one that's letting them know that they should be secure with themselves and talking to them and telling them how much they mean and stuff like that. It's both. It's two ways. I mean,
what about isolation? What about relationships where you kind of find yourself being isolated from other people in your life?
That'd be terrible. I love my family.
It happens a lot, though. It's somebody gets into a relationship and then they're spending all their time with this person and they kind of lose that balance.
Yeah.
Right?
I feel like some people don't even notice it happening too until like a couple years out, and you're like, holy shit. So it's just kind of, everyone.
For sure. Well, you know what's funny? I mean, my parents have one of the best relationships I've ever seen, but they when they got together, they got married, they had 2 kids, and they moved into a house and they had to move where the job is. A lot of times, and their friends were off doing other things. I mean, I lost a lot of friends from high school to college because you relocate and stuff like that. They didn't have friends for the 18, 20 years that we were growing up. And now they've rekindled all their friendships because they were in a different stage in their life. So sometimes that happens, and it's not necessarily your partner's fault, but that you two are in a different stage in your life than where maybe your friends are. So that's not toxic per se in that situation. My parents, I don't think have a toxic relationship, basically.
Well, let's end segment 1.
Hi, Mom.
Yeah.
Good job, Mom. One thing I want to say, I was thinking about this earlier and then it left my mind and it just came back to me, is we were talking about how, it's going to leave again. Okay. We were talking about pushback from people in your town and how a lot of musicians have to kind of get through that. And what I wanted to say is that there's something liberating about that experience, because like when I was in college, my birth last name is not Sky. And when I was in college, I remember I came out with Ryan Sky and as a music artist. And the first reaction from kids in my college was very like, oh, Ryan Sky, like who does he think he is? Like Ryan Sky. And like kind of thinking it was ridiculous. And I also felt like maybe they were right, because I felt I didn't feel very secure. I was making up a name. I mean, it was inspired or whatever, but like you're kind of creating something and dubbing yourself this new entity. But it was interesting to watch within a span of a couple of months. They went from kind of like, oh God, who does he think he is, to, oh yeah, that's Ryan Sky. So then they accept it and then they adopt it. And then a month later, they were like singing my songs in the hallways. And then that Halloween, somebody dressed up as me for Halloween. It was just interesting to kind of see the evolution of people pushing back to then adopting and
Right.
accepting. And that liberated me because it kind of loosened the grip of me in society, where I was like, even if like basically I can do what I want, like just follow my heart. And people like there's usually a delay. I find that like when
Yeah.
you pursue something or you start something, you have to be the first one to adopt it, and then there's usually a delay with the people around you. But eventually, if you're really doing it, people start to come on board. Like, did you guys experience anything like that?
I was just saying, like to B's point earlier, which was just like because you just showed you had a ton of passion for what you're doing, and then what happens is like the more actions you take to prove how passionate you are, people are going to start kind of associating to it and being excited for you. I remember times where we were starting all this stuff, and I mean we did ridiculous shit like we tried to throw warehouse parties and stuff with like our own name, and I mean we had like 0 people come to those things, but we've done like. I mean, if we think about it from when we started doing those warehouse shows all the way to when we moved to Hollywood and started throwing like our own little house parties and stuff, it went from 0 people wanting to come to these things to, like 70 people at our house with cops and everything. We couldn't even get them out. So it was cool because a lot of our friends from our hometown wanted to be there and stuff. So that was a really cool, like you said, flip of experience. It made us more confident in what we're doing. But you really do just have to push it for yourself. That's the biggest thing.
And I'm also thinking too, I didn't really think about this until right now, but I think that kind of that pushback is society's way of testing you to see how serious you are. It's interesting that the whole concept of testing each other is very deeply ingrained in Western culture, especially with dating. Like if you date people, the other person tests you, and basically test is one of the most effective ways to kind of gain information about somebody. You kind of test their character, and you tease them or push back a little bit and see how they respond. And based on how they respond, it gives you insight into their strength of character, their confidence, those sorts of things. And I've noticed that we test each other in relationships. We do it in friendships and society. It's a healthy thing. A lot of times it's done subconsciously. And now that I'm thinking about it, I think the pushback in the beginning with an artist, I think it's a little form of testing where people subconsciously kind of want to see how serious you are. And then once you show that confidence, like you said, and the passion, then they're like, okay, he's serious about this. Mm-hmm. So I can also be on board too.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. And it's definitely dependent on your friends too, because I have buddies who will still roast me for stuff, but I also have buddies who are super supportive. So you never know. They're your friends.
That's awesome. Yeah. So we're going to take a quick break. We're at the end of this segment. When we get back, we're going to continue the interview with Bryce and Cameron. We're going to talk about their song, Worst of You, go through some of the lyrics. And we were talking about toxic relationships. We'll also talk about like what signs to look for if you want to stay in the relationship, and also maybe a little bit about abuse, which I think goes hand in hand with this. Keep it lighthearted, but this is all. It's a good topic. Okay, so let's take a short break and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Life Rhythms Radio Show. I'm your host, Ryan Sky. I've got special guests today, Bryce and Cameron from Neffex. Hey guys.
Yo, what's going on?
And my manager and co-host, Scott Waldman.
So call me blind and throw my phone.
That's right. Hey. That's right.
That lyric. So that's from your song, Worst of You, which we're featuring in today's episode. You guys heard a little clip of it on the way into this second segment. The line about throwing your phone, is that a real story or?
I'm sad to say it isn't. I don't think I've ever had anyone throw my phone, but when I was writing it, I was imagining someone, a girl being upset at something you possibly did on your phone or something and calling you blind for not seeing what you did was wrong and throwing your phone. It just seemed to work well. So
I'm happy to say that it didn't happen to you.
Yeah, I'm happy. Yeah, I guess.
It's probably for the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, iPhones are expensive, I know.
Damn right.
That behavior reminds me of gaslighting, which I had mentioned earlier. We would talk a little bit about like abuse and toxicity in relationships. And one of the hallmarks is the person gaslights you. So for example, they may try to convince you that you've never, let's see, wait, I took these notes.
They're trying to convince you that they've never been abusive.
Oh, that they've never been abusive. Yeah. Scott's on it. So they could be abusive, but they'll gaslight you saying that they're never abusive, but in fact you are.
Oh yeah. Okay. People do that all the time. They flip it on you.
The switch.
And then it gets you to question reality. You're like, wait a second.
Have you ever heard the strategy? I saw this on a sitcom where like if your girlfriend or wife is like mad about something, you just get even more mad about that thing, and then she has to like calm you down. I think it's hilarious. Isn't that a weird thing?
It's not a bad strat.
Right?
Dating tricks and strategies.
Yeah,
no, I don't endorse it. Yeah.
How to low key abuse your spouse.
Yeah, they get mad, you get pissed. Yeah, you get mad. Yeah.
Step one.
You're aggressive without having to shout.
Yes, oh no, that's the low key version of that strategy. We'll talk about that. Yeah.
You're aggressive with shout.
Yes, that's the real life strategy apparently.
Right.
Yeah.
You guys, I was reading an interview you did with Noise Trend, and you had said, and I quote, "We've always believed that you have to give value to receive value. And that was our goal when we started to make copyright-free music." I thought that was really interesting. First of all, I love the idea of giving value to receive value. I'm a proponent of that way of life. And then I also love that you guys were focused on creating copyright-free music.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, what was that? So, because you guys did 100 songs in 100 weeks.
Correct.
When you started out. For listeners that are for those of you listening that are new to Neffex, you guys started your band in your group 2017.
Yeah.
And you started off, you kind of challenged yourselves to release 100 songs in 100 weeks.
Right. We're super passionate about music and making music, but we had no idea how to get our music heard. I mean, it's near impossible nowadays with how competitive it is. And we saw people like Russ and Little Wayne used to have a ton of success. He would do like 200 features in a year or something like that. And so, wow. We just wanted to get really good at making music. We were super passionate about it. We just wanted to make a ton of music super fast. And so we did a weekly schedule and we tried to stick to it.
That sounds like a way of kind of hacking. It's kind of like a life hack. I like the idea that you put that on you, the 100 songs in 100 weeks, because it kind of forces you into this weekly rhythm.
Yeah, for sure.
And
Holds you accountable.
And you mentioned in the article about the 10,000 hours, where they say it takes about 10,000 hours to become a master.
Yes.
And did you experience that in this process? Could you feel your evolution happening as the songs were coming out?
Dear God, yes. I mean, literally the 10,000 hours it takes. I think I did the math one time. I was like, oh, if you worked on something 6 hours a day, how long would it? It was like 5 years or like 8 years if you did it like 6 hours a day or something crazy. And so we've been working on music since we were 15. I mean, we got instruments when we were 12, 13, 14. So I think that's when the 10,000 hours starts. And now we're 27. It's like we're probably just now starting to master our craft technically. So it's kind of crazy.
And those early songs, do you listen to them and how do you feel about it? Like, is it, because the reason I asked is because I have like the relationship that I have with early songs that I've done. It's kind of like, and one hand I can see, oh, I've grown a lot since I've released that. And then another hand, I'm like, do I still want this to be out? Because
we've definitely done that. Yeah. That's funny. Sometimes I look back and I'm like, you know what? We weren't as bad back then as I thought. And then other times you look back and you're like, oh, this doesn't sound very good. Or these lyrics are interesting at best. And so it's like, it is interesting, but usually I guess it's just nostalgic looking back at songs for the most part.
That's what I was going to say. It's a nice quality of it, which is cool.
Yeah. I wrote a song in 10th grade about my mom nagging me called Headache Effect, and now I can't listen to it.
It's called Bitch Go Away.
Call my mom?
Dude, that's amazing. You're expressing yourself. That's a start. That's good.
I was very expressive.
Nice. I'm sure your mom was stoked about it.
Oh, she loved that I was singing.
Yeah. Pursue your passion. Get mad at me.
No, she's like, go to law school.
That's awesome.
The 100 songs. I'm curious, fans. Okay. My question is, what I'm thinking about is, before you release 100 songs, I'm just thinking about myself. If I'm just starting out and I want to put out 100 songs, some of the thoughts that might go through my mind are like, if the songs aren't good, and now I have this content out there, like, I'm curious what were fans' reactions to that early works? Like maybe you feel a certain way about the songs, but are you glad you kind of, because you went to market, you kind of like, let's go to market quick with
Yeah.
music
Yeah.
rather than like incubate.
I was gonna say, it's like, well, our first intention was not to make 100 songs in 100 weeks. Our first intention was just to come out with a song every week on Wednesday and just get it going. I think it was like song 60 or something. We decided we're like, we should try and hit 100 just for the hallmark of it. But it was a really cool experience because, like you said, I was just getting content out as fast as we kind of could. But it was also freeing as an artist because it was kind of like whatever we had that week, whatever was done when we finished that song, we just put it out. And even if we didn't like a song as much, some of our fans liked it more than we even liked it at times. So it was kind of a cool experience seeing that happening. So
I'm looking at your list of 100 songs, and it looks towards the end that maybe like around 91 and up are about this task being daunting. Like you have one called, it's like Deep Thoughts, To Lost Within, To Struggle, To Make It, To Run Away, To We Could Do It All. And then
yeah, man, it was getting tough.
Yeah.
It was getting tough.
Well, the best one is Just Not Fair. That's perfect for 90.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
No, I don't think you realize that.
I didn't honestly realize that. No, so much of like Cam was saying and stuff. I mean, so much of it was, we had probably 100 songs before we even started our 100 songs in 100 weeks. We had a full-on EP that was done, but by the time we finished the project, we were like already better at making music. And so we didn't want to put that out. So then we were working on the next project. And by the time that project was done, we were better than that music. And so we were always fearful of putting music out. And so that's why we started this, when the song is done, put it out and move on to the next one so that we're actually releasing content. And it could have helped. It could have hurt. I don't know. Everyone has a different approach.
Did that process help you let go?
Yes.
Putting things out and just let it go? Because no song's ever complete. Right. Really, there's always something you can do to change it.
There's always a knob to turn, man. There's never enough knobs. Yeah. Yeah.
So did this help you kind of be able to put stuff out and just let it be and move on?
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly how we approached it. It was, it's like Cam said, there's always another knob to turn. There's always another EQ thing you can do. It sounds good on these speakers, but not these speakers. And while there is a level of importance to that, you don't want to be putting out bad quality music that people eventually can look at and be like, oh my God, but it's also cool to show the growth. I've heard some artists where you listen to their initial songs and you're like, oh my God, that's kind of inspiring because he or she was not very good here. And now listen to them. They're amazing. And so, goes both ways.
And to have that documented online is amazing that people can see the evolution rather than being super curated with what you have online.
Go listen to some of Blink-182's early stuff. It's
hilarious. I was
hilarious.
The same thing. And I was like, no offense to Blink-182, but you should listen to the first stuff because it's pretty funny and it's really cool to see how they turned out. Process.
They became like this mature group after having songs called Dick Lips.
Yes. Yeah. They had a great evolution.
Do you guys have any favorite song titles of some of your records?
Man, that would be a good one.
I mean, Dick Lips that's pretty high.
It's pretty memorable.
I like we did anything. Schmack was a fun one.
What is it?
Schmack. It sounds like something that like someone who is a fan of The Rock would say if they have a lisp.
We took that one down. That one was Schmacked. I don't know if you know, but it was an Instagram account. Like back when we were writing that song, it was kind of a pop-in college Instagram account that would just show these ridiculous. It's basically like Girls Gone Wild, but for college without like actual nudity and stuff. And so I wrote a bunch of lyrics based off of what I was seeing in the Instagram feed, and my parents were super disappointed in me.
That was a fun phone call.
How old were you when you wrote that? Do you remember?
I was plenty mature. I was 23, 24, something like that. Fresh out of college. But yeah.
But mom and dad are always going to be mom and dad.
Right. It was part of the 100 songs in 100 weeks. And
Mom. Yeah.
We were like, oh no.
Just expressing ourselves, Mom.
Yeah, that's right. Guys. It's a dope Instagram channel, Mom.
I remember being in, I'd say it was like second or third grade, and I was really into the Boys to Men album. And I remember listening to it, and I remember showing my mom the song "I'll Make Love to You." Super excited into it, and I didn't really know. And you know the lyrics are like, "Throw your clothes on the floor. I'm gonna take my clothes off too. I got plans to be with you." You know, and my mom's listening. And I remember I showed her that song, and I was also into Salt and Pepper's what's
What a Man? Shoop?
no Shoop. Yeah, Shoop. And I knew every word, and I was rapping it for my mom, and I was in like third grade. She was not happy. She's like, "What are you listening to? Where are you finding this music at?" She took my CDs from me.
I have a similar story. When I was in middle school, my mom took me to the record store. It was called The Wall. I don't know if they had that outside of Long Island.
Yeah.
It was where you could basically return a skip disc and all that jazz. But I was like, you know what? There's this really cool band called Nine Inch Nails, and this album is called Spiral. And so I grabbed it, gave it to my mom. She went to the counter to buy it, and the clerk looked at my mother, basically like my mom was the worst parent of all time, and said, "Do you know like this band or anything about this?" And my mom's like, "No." And she whispered something in my mom's ear, and I'll never know what it was. And my mom's like, "Yeah, no, get another CD."
I had one. So this isn't a music one, but I had one Christmas when I was like 7 or 8, and my mom bought me Grand Theft Auto without knowing what it was, but I really wanted it. So I opened it up that Christmas. We started playing it. Dude, she was like, "Are you kicking people out of that car and shooting them?" And I was like, "Yeah, Mom, this is sick. I just got a Corvette. Look at me go." And she's like,
"Thanks, Mom.
We're gonna get this game out of here. This is not." So that was a fun Christmas.
Has anyone done a sociological study on whether like young boys that played Grand Theft Auto have stolen cars?
I don't think so. They're probably too scared to figure out that not many have.
Direct correlation.
Yeah, exactly.
I was reading about how the U.S. military uses the gaming community to find and recruit talent.
Yeah,
I bet.
It's nuts.
They
should.
Gotta have a good KD.
Drones.
Well, it's like that movie. What's that? Catch Me If You Can. Like Leonardo, he was recruited by the FBI.
Oh, because he was so good at being a criminal. Yeah.
Counterfeiting, you know.
Yep.
And with the gaming, it's kind of opportunistic. It's like, okay, here's a bunch of dudes that are into killing and fighting, so maybe they might be interested in joining the military.
We all know Call of Duty is like real life, so I mean, it's an easy comparison.
Anytime I touch my car, I beat the shit out of the person.
So I want to, listeners, we're featuring Neffex's song today, "Worst of You." And when I'm looking at the lyrics towards the end of the song, and you say, this is interesting. What I find interesting about the song, and I like it, is it's hopeful. Towards the end, you say, well, first of all, you're saying like, "In these times, I miss what we had. Just yesterday, I was making you laugh. How did things get so bad? How do I make you so mad?" And one thing I want to talk about today, this made me think about polarities. We live in a universe that exists out of a state of polarity. The hot and the heat and the cold is creating energy, and you have masculine and feminine energies in relationships. And also, it's interesting how somebody who can start out being a source of pure joy for you can then suddenly become somebody that you hate. And they always say the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. And when you think about love and hate, those polarities, I'm seeing that in this song. It's like I used to make you laugh. You were laughing, and now you're so mad at me. How does that happen?
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to talk about polarities. Interesting to me.
No, it is interesting because it's almost like the people you love the most are the people that can hurt you the most, obviously, and that you can hate the most because you love them so much. I think that's the polarity you're talking about. And basically in this song, the first verse, I'm describing, what the initial fight is. You're quiet, yet your actions are so loud. It's like this super passive aggressive fight. And in the second verse, I'm describing how like things are usually really good and things are usually great. And I love you and I miss what we had. And your smile is so bright. And then, how do things go? So how can things get so bad with someone I love and care about so much? in those times.
Yep.
But like you said, it has a brighter. It's an emotional song, but it's got a bright feeling. And so I wanted to cap it off with, like, at the end of the day, you're still the one I want. Like, you are still the person for me, the person I love, and the person I care about.
That's cool.
Yeah.
What I like about understanding polarity is, just as somebody can go from being a source of joy to a source of hate, the opposite is true. Because what I find is that whatever is like manifesting in the moment, good or bad, the exact opposite potential is always there. It's just not manifested yet. And the reason why I bring that up is because if you find because I mentioned this in the beginning, that not just, you may find yourself in an unhealthy dynamic, and maybe it would be a good idea to get out of it, but there may also be signs that you can work through it together. Right.
Right.
And that's kind of like, things have gone bad, but maybe we can turn it around. So what some of the things to look for, you had mentioned in the beginning, Bryce, about I think it was awareness, about having openness in a relationship.
Oh yeah, yeah. Open-mindedness.
Open-mindedness. I think that's so important, is that open-mindedness, and seeing that the other person is willing to change, that they recognize change needs to happen, and you actually see that they're willing to do that.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely it. That's why when you're saying, like, yeah, if you can see the potential that someone can adapt and change with you and grow with you, it really is just someone being open-minded to a difference of opinion, a difference of mindset. And that's what can, like you said, turn the love into hate and the hate into love. Well, mostly the hate into love is just if someone's super open-minded.
Yeah.
Well, I'll wait for the day it comes back to me.
Good.
Oh, that's
good. Dude, you gotta talk to our manager, man. He
This
loves
guy.
you. He loves you.
Thank you. And since you love me, I'll be the dick. We're almost
Good.
done.
Aw.
So
Yay.
I'm
Boo.
sorry.
Ew.
How did things get so bad? How do I make you so mad?
By ending things.
You sound so sad, Scott.
I am. You guys are great.
Aw, thank you.
Neffex is cool.
Thank
cool.
you.
Look
Good
at that.
try.
And
That's a
when I was researching and looking, like I mentioned that article you interviewed with Noise Trend, and just looking at your background and stuff. When I saw that you guys grew up on like Blink-182 and Nirvana, I immediately was like, oh, this is going to be a good episode for Scott. Especially when I saw that you guys are both part of a punk rock band.
Yes. Love it.
It's really
blood.
interesting to me how much of the pop and the dance world comes out of this punk background. We've talked about this, Scott, like a lot of executives.
It's like the DIY people. Basically, they gravitate to it. I mean, Skrillex is as big as it gets, and he was in a screamo group.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, even with the hip hop these days, notice so many like punk melodies and stuff like that.
Well, Post Malone was in a
sure.
punk band.
Yeah, a lot of them come from that, so it's pretty cool, actually.
He was Post Malone was in a what was that? A punk
Like
band?
a punk, like he was. I know that he tried getting in Crown the Empire, which is like a metalcore group. So it's like you really never know.
Metalcore.
Well, yeah, I mean,
That'd be so epic.
we could have an entire episode on this where we confuse the fuck out of Ryan. It'd be great.
I'm down. Let's do it. Let's confuse me. But I think we're at the end. Yeah, Scott? It's been.
We are. I know. I'm the buzzkill. I
Scott,
memorized every single melody
Dang,
of all
managers.
your 100 songs that you did.
Goes by fast, right, guys?
Yeah,
But,
that's great.
actually-
Yeah,
Oh, fast. It's been
Yeah.
awesome having you guys on today.
thank you. Been awesome being here.
Yeah.
I'd love you guys to shout out your socials so people can find you on social media.
Okay, we are at Neffex. That's Neffex. That's it for Instagram, pretty much anywhere you go. And then my personal is at It's Bryce, ITSBRYCE. And Cam, what's yours?
I'm at Cameron Wales, which it's Wales like the country. There you go.
Amazing.
Go educate yourself.
I ain't supporting that.
I'm
That's
following
awesome.
both of you bitches.
Let's
Okay.
go.
Can't wait,
Let's
Scott.
Thank you guys
DM
so
me.
much for coming on to Life Rhythms. Listeners, check out the new single, Worst of You. Check out Neffex on social media. And thank you for checking out Life Rhythms. Guys, it's been a pleasure.
Hey, appreciate it, man.
Thank you. Love
Okay. Until next
Okay.
time.
it. Later.